If you've been scrolling on the animal side of the internet, there's a good chance that you've seen this gut-wrenching video of what looks like a lion digging its own grave and collapsing into it. Extremely emaciated and completely worn out, the king of the jungle, or savannah, sparked a massive debate online, with people trying to figure out what was really going on. Some thought it might be trying to cool itself down by digging a hole, while others were convinced it was digging its own final resting place, like one last act of dignity from a creature that had ruled with pride. The truth, though, is both heartbreaking and brutal, and it only reinforces why the lion is seen as the king of the jungle. A title earned not just because of its power and presence, but also because of the terrifying reality it lives with. This is the untold fall of a king once unmatched, the African lion. Panthera leo, more commonly known as the African lion, or just lion, is the second largest wildcat in the world, right after the tiger. These big cats are native to sub-Saharan Africa, with a small, isolated population still surviving in parts of India. They tend to live in scattered groups across their range and usually stick to open, grassy plains, savannas, and areas near rivers with low trees and vegetation that offers them both plenty of prey and just the right amount of cover to stay healthy when it counts. Not just built for the flatlands, these big beasts are actually way more adaptable than they get credited for. They can survive just fine at crazy altitudes, even up to 12,000 feet. And they're tough enough to handle scorching heat, freezing nights, and pretty much anything the wild throws at them. Back in her home range, this lioness has just given birth to a cub, far away from the noise and chaos of her pride. Born blind and covered in thick fur with dark spots, the tiny cub enters the world looking nothing like the powerful beast it's meant to become. As it grows, not only will that fur begin to thin out and the spots start to fade, but what follows will unleash a life cycle so raw and relentless that it will drag the future king through a fall, a rise, and yet another fall, each carved in the battle of blood, power, and ferocity unmatched anywhere else in the animal kingdom. The very first challenge a lion faces is surviving its own childhood. For the first couple of years, lion cubs live under the protection of their mothers, but it's not exactly a bubble of safety. While the young ones are still figuring out how to hunt and use their instincts, their moms often leave them alone for entire days while they're out chasing prey across the savannah. So, with no backup, a vulnerable little cub in the middle of nowhere gets immediately surrounded by danger. As a result, around 80% of lion cubs don't even make it to adulthood. They either get picked off by predators or starve while waiting for their mothers to return. But worse than that, sometimes older males, especially new ones who've taken over a pride, straight up kill the cubs that aren't theirs, just to bring the mothers out of their nurturing phase sooner, so they can mate and pass on their own genes instead. This group of 5 male lions formed what's known as a coalition called Birmingham Boys, and took over a pride that was originally ruled by a duo of males called the Matimba males. Not long after taking control, all the cubs under a year-old were reportedly wiped out by the Birmingham coalition. Now, let's say a cub somehow survives all that, or is lucky enough to be born under the reign of a new dominant male. That still doesn't guarantee much. Because before they even turn 3, they'll usually get kicked out of the pride, most of the time by their own father. And what comes next is easily the harshest chapter of a lion's life, the exile. Almost as soon as it sets out on its own, a solitary lion runs into serious trouble of hunting enough to keep itself fed. Even though it's already developed some skills by this point, a lion hunting alone doesn't have the best odds. In a group, lions typically succeed about 30% of the time when they go for a kill. But when one is on its own, that number drops to somewhere between 17 and 19%. The main reason for that comes down to the fact that lions aren't exactly built for endurance, unlike some of the other big cats. Their heart makes up just 0.4 to 0.5% of their body weight, and they are packed with fast-twitch muscle fibers that are great for short bursts of explosive energy, but that energy burns out just as quickly. So while they can hit speeds of up to 37 miles per hour, it's only a matter of a few seconds before that burst fades away. And when most of your prey can outrun you, or fight back just as hard, it becomes a tough fight to win. A wildebeest, for instance, can top 49 miles per hour. And an African buffalo isn't just fast, he can charge head-on and flatten a lion, especially when backed up by the rest of the herd. That's why a lot of lone lions end up feeding on carrion or stealing food from other predators. When they do hunt, they usually go for easier targets, like warthogs. Still, not a guaranteed win, but a warthog's speed is more manageable, and if the lion's lucky, it might just drag one out of its hole. But that surviving and barely holding on phase doesn't last forever. Soon enough, the ferocity takes over. By the time it hits around 5 years of age, an adult African lion has grown into a muscular, broad-chested beast, with power carved into every fiber of its frame. At this point, nearly 59% of its body weight is made up of skeletal muscle, which is the highest muscle percentage of any mammal on Earth, giving it raw, explosive strength that is simply unmatched. A fully grown male can stretch up to 9.8 feet from head to tail and weigh around 496 pounds. Females aren't far behind, reaching up to 9 feet and weighing about 316 pounds. And in rare, extraordinary cases, those numbers can go even higher. Like the heaviest lion ever recorded in Africa, back in 1936, tipped the scales at a massive 690 pounds. Add to that an arsenal of natural weapons, sharp razor claws measuring 1.5 inches, and a crushing bite force that can reach up to 1,000 psi, and you've got a predator that firmly holds its place at the top of Africa's Big Five. As soon as it reaches full size and strength, the first thing this African giant sets its sights on is reclaiming its rightful throne. Sometimes alone, sometimes teaming up in a coalition with other exiled males, these powerful cats launch calculated attacks on prides ruled by older lions, challenging them for territory, dominance, and the right to lead. These clashes are among the most violent confrontations in the entire animal kingdom. For an older lion, it's a battle to defend his kingdom, a last stand to protect everything he's ruled over. For a returning coalition, it's not just about taking over. It's about reclaiming the throne and settling the score for the brutal exile they were forced into. Neither side fights to back out, and they're not there to scare each other off either. They fight to kill every single rival male or die trying. These blood-soaked wars can last for hours, beginning with intense stalking, deafening roars, sudden chases, and calculated cornering. But they always end the same way, in a savage frenzy of violence where lions tear each other apart, mauling and ripping through flesh like wild machines. These two young lions managed to corner the older male and separate him from the rest of the pride. What followed was described by witnesses as a titanic battle, wherein a savage, drawn-out, blood-soaked clash, the aging lion was brutally torn apart. By the time it was over, both the victors and the victim were stained red, and the young challengers had claimed the pride as their own. Meanwhile, a group of 4 young lions marched straight into rival territory inside Nakuru National Park in Kenya, trying to take over a pride held by 3 older, more experienced males. After several clashes, intense chases, and some back-and-forth cornering, things didn't go as planned for the younger group. 3 of the 4 intruders ended up fleeing, leaving one of them behind, trapped in enemy territory. As the final chase came to a close, and the lone, young lion found himself cornered near the park's fence, he made a desperate run for it, squeezing through the electric fence and shocking himself in the process. But he didn't let himself fall to the adult lions. In the case of success, though, the brutal nature of a lion's comeback to a pride doesn't end with just killing the dominant males. The returning lions end up treating the new ones the same way they were treated when they were driven out. Most of the cubs are slaughtered in vicious struggles with their mothers, who fight back but rarely win. And that few who survive are either exiled or shoved to the bottom of the pride, left to live on scraps and stripped of any real place in the group. As soon as the cubs are killed off and the females stop nursing, the new dominant males waste no time getting down to business. Once a female goes into heat, multiple dominant males from the pride take turns mating with her every 20 to 30 minutes for days, racking up more than 50 copulations every 24 hours, which is only 7 short of the record set by your mother. Oddly enough, all this hyperactive mating behavior has a lot to do with the mane. An adult male lion grows this thick, backward-flowing mane around its head, neck, and shoulders, and it's one of the few things that makes lions really stand out from the rest of the big cats. It starts growing when they're young, but as testosterone kicks in, so does the volume and thickness of these majestic hairs. The more dramatic the mane, the more attention they get. Males with darker, fuller manes tend to have more reproductive success, stick around in a pride longer, and are the ones females usually choose. On the flip side, males that are injured or castrated often lose their manes and never grow much of one in the first place. But testosterone isn't the only thing affecting a lion's mane. Temperatures matter too. Males in cooler climates, like those in European or North American zoos, tend to grow heavier, fuller manes than the poor guys sweating it out in the wild heat of Africa or Asia. Not just that, there's an entire group of males in West Africa's Pendjari National Park who have either no mane at all or just a short one, despite having perfectly normal testosterone levels and no trouble keeping up with their ladies. As their mating procedure comes to an end, the African lion's penis, with its backward-pointing spines, scrape along the walls of the female's vaginal canal during withdrawal, which eventually causes ovulation. And while it's a completely raw, instinct-driven, and pretty intense ordeal, which you'd totally expect from lions, males and females still toss in a little head rubbing and rolling around like they're trying to pass it off as some deep, emotional bonding moment. But what you really don't expect from an animal like a lion is homosexual behavior. Around 8% of mountings observed in the wild are actually between same-sex lions. It usually happens when males get kicked out of a pride and end up forming coalitions with other exiled lions. A good chunk of these guys never make it back into a pride, which means no females, and no choice either. So they take what they can get and end up satisfying each other. But it's not just about that. These encounters also serve as a way to build loyalty and maintain unity in the group, because without that, it wouldn't take much for the whole coalition to turn into a power struggle against each other. On top of that, dominant lions in a pride or coalition have also been seen mounting lower-ranking ones, sometimes just to reinforce control and keep everything in line. Some experts believe this behavior isn't necessarily about sexual gratification at all, or at least not only that. In many cases, it's likely just another form of social bonding, and females have been observed doing it too. Apart from all the sexual perks and an inflated sense of dominance, being the ruler of a pride comes with a few other hard-earned luxuries during those peak years. Adult male lions, for example, spend about 20 hours a day doing absolutely nothing, just sleeping. Out of the remaining 4 hours, around 2 are spent casually patrolling the territory, pacing around like they're running a kingdom, making sure no rivals sneak in. The rest of the time goes to grooming, socializing with the group, which can be up to 30 lions, and, of course, eating like royalty. Now, compare that to the lioness, and the workload suddenly looks a bit different. The females are out there protecting their cubs, hunting down prey, and bringing back food for the whole pride, all while somehow managing about 15 hours of sleep a day, which is still impressive multitasking, considering the guys are still snoring. Since lions are mainly nocturnal ambush predators, most of the hunting goes down at night. But if they do it during the day, it's usually under the cover of trees or tall grass. In a typical group hunt, each lioness has a go-to role. Some take what's called a wing and stalk from the sides, while others stay close to the center, ready to catch anything that bolts in their direction. These hunting roles give the group strength from every angle and cut down the chances of prey making it out alive. This wildebeest fled frantically after spotting an approaching lioness, kicking off a brief but vicious chase. Moments later, it looks like the wildebeest might actually get away, putting distance between itself and the lone lioness. But out of nowhere, the panicked antelope makes a sharp, desperate turn as a second lioness explodes out from the bushes. The sudden shift kills the wildebeest's momentum, and with a brutal swipe of her front paw, the second lioness slams it to the ground, turning what looked like a failed solo hunt into a perfectly executed team takedown. Once the prey is down, the charming part begins. This ferocious cat sinks its canines straight into the throat or muzzle and just holds on for up to 13 minutes until the struggling stops. While the females handle most of the hunting, every now and then a male decides to join in too. And when he does, to be fair, the group tends to do just as well. In fact, once a dominant male gains some experience, he actually gets better at hunting solo too, especially compared to his clueless, freshly exiled days. This pair of lion and lioness has managed to separate an African buffalo from the herd, and it's showtime. The lioness swings around to the side, pushing the buffalo inward, while the male circles behind, goes in for the grab, brings it down, and holds on for a long time, locking it in place until the big buffalo finally suffocates under its own weight. The duo has just taken down enough food to feed their entire pride for days. Most of the time, once the kill is done, the whole group just shows up and starts tearing into it right there on the spot. But every now and then, these stealthy predators decide to drag the massive carcass into some cover and slowly feed on it over the course of several days. An adult lion needs around 17 to 20 pounds of meat a day just to stay functional. But when prey is everywhere and life's good, these cats throw portion control out the window and gorge themselves with up to 100 pounds in a single sitting, taking short breaks in between and going back until the kill is completely finished. During these intense feeding sessions, the males often fight each other for the best chunks, and the cubs get whatever's left, if anything at all. And if the kill isn't big enough, the little ones are sometimes just left to watch the whole thing go down hungry. For this pride of lions, though, things are a bit different. They've been chasing a huge giraffe for quite some time now, and by this point, both sides are completely exhausted. But instead of letting what could be a week's worth of food for the entire pride just walk away, the lions, panting and worn out, choose to rest nearby. They know the giraffe is in no shape to escape. Its legs are trembling, can barely stay upright. So they wait, quietly, just sitting, catching their breath, trying to gather enough strength to finish what they started. And right when it feels like the break is over, one of them gets up and jumps right back in, climbing onto the giraffe's back, clawing and biting again and again. The rest of the pride slowly joins in, circling their collapsing meal as the hunt finally comes to an end. The giraffe kicks and tramples, trying to shake them off, but it's obvious this isn't going anywhere. And then, with one last leap, a lion goes straight for the neck. The timing isn't perfect, but it doesn't matter. The giraffe's legs finally give out, and down it goes, leaving the lions to wrap things up without much resistance. Apart from their usual prey, a part of a lion's diet sometimes comes from taking out and eating their competitors. Living in the African wild and being one of the continent's big five predators, these powerful cats dominate in a world full of tough rivals. One of the most aggressive of these competitors is the hyena. Lions often kill hyenas and steal their kills, but it's not always one-sided. Those nasty carnivores move in large clans and aren't afraid to take on a lion, and when the numbers are in their favor, they can do serious damage. On the right day, they can even kill a lion. Cheetahs, on the other hand, also show up in the mix sometimes, especially when the hunting grounds overlap. But more often than not, the lion, being nearly 4 times the size of a cheetah, responds in a cold, brutal fashion that leaves no question about who's really in charge. This massive male lion had been silently stalking a group of 3 cheetahs who were caught up in forcing a female into mating. Normally, the moment a lion shows up, cheetahs would retreat without a second thought. But this time, one of the testosterone-fueled males did the opposite. He stomped the ground, warning the lion to back off. The big cat took that challenge personally and kept stalking them across the plain. And when the trio finally caught the female they were chasing and got busy forcing her, the lion launched straight through the bushes where they were, and what followed was a brutal reminder of how unforgiving these wild clashes can be. The 3 cheetahs bolted from the scene, and seconds later, the lion emerged from the bushes, when the female cheetah, hanging limp from its jaws, killed for no reason other than being caught in the crossfire. Apart from cheetahs and hyenas, wild dogs, rhinos, elephants, crocodiles, and so on and so forth. While the king of the jungle clashes with just about any predator that crosses into its territory or threatens its food supply, and usually comes out on top, humans have turned out to be their fiercest and most relentless rival. Since the 18th century, we've kept lions confined in cages, displayed them in exhibitions, and trained them to perform in circuses, all for the sake of amusement. According to several reports, over 1,000 African lions are currently being held in zoos around the world, reduced to living displays for the public eye. And while countless studies have made it clear that captivity is neither physically nor mentally suitable for these wild animals, human dominance over them doesn't stop there. For centuries, lions have been killed by people, for trophies, rituals, or just out of fear. And in ancient times, they were kept by kings and emperors for royal hunts, gladiator battles, and even as execution tools for criminals. In some African tribes, killing a lion still marks a rite of passage into manhood. During the European colonization of Africa in the 19th century, lions were labeled as pests. Their killing was encouraged, and their skins were sold off for as little as £1 each. In July 2015, an American trophy hunter named Walter Palmer killed a lion named Cecil, which was being studied and protected by Oxford University in Zimbabwe's Hwange National Park. The incident sparked worldwide outrage and brought more attention to the dark side of trophy hunting. But despite all that, around 600 lions are still legally killed by trophy hunters every year. That alone counts for about 2% of their total population being wiped out annually, with a license and a smile. Between this so-called legal hunting, the steady destruction of their natural habitats, and the outbreaks of disease, the global lion population has nosedived, from over 200,000 individuals to just 24,000 in under a century. And that's why today they're officially listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List of Endangered Species. Contrary to that, however, lions turning their fury toward humans paints an equally grim picture, if not worse. In Africa alone, lions attack over 700 people annually, and out of those, at least 100 end up dead. They often sneak into nearby villages looking for food and end up killing livestock, farmers, and sometimes even entire families caught off guard. Not only that, some lions have been known to turn into dedicated man-eaters over time. One of the most chilling examples dates back to 1898, when 2 lions in Kenya, later known as the Tsavo lions, or even nicknames the Ghost and the Darkness by some of the native workers during the construction of the Uganda-Mombasa Railway, gained infamy for killing and eating more than 130 railway workers over the course of 9 months. Their reign of terror remains one of the most terrifying man-eater stories ever recorded. Another case is the man-eater of Mfue, who was a lion responsible for the deaths of 6 people. What made this one stand out wasn't just the body count, but the sheer size. Measuring nearly 10 feet in length, standing 3.9 feet tall at the shoulder, and weighing a massive 500 pounds, it still holds the record as the largest man-eating lion ever documented. The cause behind this man-eating behavior is most often tied to an injury. When a lion is too weak or wounded to chase down its usual prey, it often shifts its focus to something slower, easier, and unfortunately, that often means humans. In some cases, if it's not an injury, it's desperation. A severe shortage of prey of the physical decline that will come with age can also push lions to hunt easier targets, leading to fatal encounters with people. Speaking of old age, once the lion starts aging, the glory days and the pride start to fade just as fast. It's not just rival males from neighboring coalitions who see him as an easy target to expand their territory, or the exiled lions he once pushed out coming back in groups. Sometimes, even the lionesses of his own pride turn against him when they no longer see him as strong enough to lead. In 2018, a group of shocked onlookers at West Midlands Safari Park in England watched in horror as a pride of lionesses suddenly turned on their aging dominant male, attacking him so viciously that park officials had to step in immediately to stop them from tearing him apart. No matter how long he held on or how strong he once was, every dominant lion eventually loses his crown. Whether it's a rival coalition or a returning exile, the story is almost always the same. He's either killed in the takeover or driven out into isolation, repeating the same cycle he once started when he rose to power. And once exiled, it's back to square one, but this time it's even harder. Stealing kills from scavengers isn't as straightforward anymore, and even chasing down warthogs who were once manageable targets starts to feel like an uphill battle. And this is when footage like this surfaces online. What looks like a lion digging its own grave and collapsing into it. It's actually an old, starving lion clawing at the ground to drag a warthog out of its hole and killing it. According to witness accounts, the big cat spent nearly 7 hours digging into that hole just to claim a single kill, one that might have stretched his life by a few more days, if that. And honestly, there's no telling if he'd ever get that lucky again. For all the power and presence they carry, the king of the jungle barely makes it past 13 or 14 in the wild, and that is if everything goes right. Yeah, not exactly the royal treatment, is it? One of the most gripping stories of a lion's rise to dominance, and a fall just as legendary, is the story of Scarface. Scarface rose to power with a coalition of 4 lions he formed, called the Musketeers, and together they took over the Marsh Pride, which was one of the most powerful prides in the savannah. It was during one of those bloody battles for control that he took a brutal slash across the face. The scar never went away, and neither did his name. Over 14 hard-fought years of his life, Scarface took down more than 400 hyenas, clashed with over 130 rival lions, brawled with hippos, and forced crocodiles out of his waters. And after living like a king and ruling like a legend, Scarface died naturally in June 2021 without ever being dethroned. Now, you tell us, what part of a lion's life actually makes it the king? The rise to the throne, or the slow, brutal fall into dust? Drop your take in the comments, and as always, we will catch you in the next one.